Merry Christmas! That's literally the name of this episode because it aired on Christmas Eve, which means that this is also airing on Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to those who celebrate, but not everyone does, including the writer of this episode, ironically. Before we get to that, remember to check out the Patreon, where we celebrate every holiday. Many secrets to behold. My name is Ashley Clements.
And my name is Margaret Dunlap.
And this is the Merry Christmas Look Back Diaries. Oh, you know what is in this song? This episode, before we started recording, we were both going like, what's in this episode? Because this is another story. I'll let you tell it after the episode.
Okay.
Remember how there's a Christmas song in this, I think.
There is a Christmas song in this, yes.
And I still remember the story you told me at the time about it. So
I hope I do. If I don't, you can. All right.
I'll prompt you. Let's take a look at this Christmas episode that, like many great Christmas classics, was written by a Jewish person.
75 videos, not including my unnamed Q&As. That's a lot
but,
of videos.
Like Irving Berlin's White Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Many of the Christmas songs of that era, those are all written by Jewish people.
Many of the great Christmas movies. It is true.
Indeed.
I have to feel like your line there about 75 videos is a lot of videos with some just me going like, holy crap, that's a lot as videos that we
No, it's a very fair observation. It's also a fair observation about this project.
Yeah.
Suddenly become the shore as soon as you're writing a holiday letter. Anyway, I realized
when I was a child,
that's a Margaret joke.
We got a letter from, it's like the Christmas letter, our trip to the Jersey Shore, and suddenly we're jealous, and it's like, why are we jealous of the Jersey Shore?
Because it's the shore. Yes, but I've made many a joke in my life about the Christmas letter because I think they are a funny thing. Maybe in the era of social media, they're less of a thing. See, the royalty? Now you're going to remember the story. Of course, Laura was like, oh, yes, I have this like perfect little Santa
Christmas dress. Yes, with her Christmas lipstick.
I know. Everyone's so cute. I wore something with green in it to counter the red.
There's a lot of red going on. Oh, you can't leave out Lydia.
Jane, would you please ask Lydia to grow up for a minute so we can take
this is the only time that we do this where like we really emphasize her room being across the hall and we include her in this way, and I like how much we feel the house and the proximity and the sisterness.
Yeah. I also like knowing that in real life that was the door to Jenny's living room.
Yep.
And like everybody who was not actually crammed in behind the camera, that's where they were hanging out, trying not to make too much noise while we shot this.
Cousin Mary come over and Cousin Mary plays her bass guitar.
And
is this the first mention of Cousin Mary? Or
have we met her? She's already appeared at this point. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Viewers are celebrating. I have no idea.
Man, I wonder how, Jane.
But this is one of our like biggest social media like interactivity.
Yeah, it was like the purse giveaway and this were like one of the few times in the main series where we actually asked the viewers, hey, do this task for us.
And that playlist still exists. I'll link it below. There's a playlist of the people who posted a video response, which for those of you who don't recall was a thing on YouTube at the time.
Yeah. And I know that we were like super duper inclusive, like whatever you do celebrate this time of year, but it's like I remember we were having a whole discussion about, as someone who doesn't celebrate Christmas, you spend all year watching a TV show, and then this, these non-religious people all of a sudden like they're celebrating Christmas and they become, less like someone like me whenever that happens. And so it's like, the Bennetts are certainly at least American Christians, sort of, they would have a tree, they do all of these things, but it's like
the presents, the food, the songs.
I was not going to do a Christmas episode, asking people to, it's like, tell us about Hanukkah, tell us about, whatever you're celebrating, please, we don't want to exclude anybody. And that was important to me.
It's also like a trope of TV shows, and we're also like being sort of this real world vlogger person. We did Thanksgiving, and now we've done the Christmas. But what you told me at the time was the whole story about royalties and which Christmas songs you can use, and of course the ones that are public domain are like very religious Latin songs, like "O Come Emmanuel," and it's like, okay, but that's not like probably the vibe here.
Yeah, we don't owe anybody royalties for "O Little Town of Bethlehem," but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that's a little more Jesus oriented than we want to get with the show.
Yeah,
just generally,
there's a whole lot of more sort of secular sounding 20th century Christmas songs that are about Santa and snow
and
snowmen.
winter, and and I think I remember
sleigh rides.
And I having the discussion, me going, it's like, no, we're not going to be able to use it. And like, so, either he or I finally looked it up and discovered that "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" is in fact quite old.
But what I think is nice about the royalty thing, and I think the reason that it stayed with me, is that it's not something that people think about. And I mean nice about in terms of sharing with them that, yeah, that if we had used White Christmas, well, that's somebody owns that, and we would have to pay for it, and there was no budget to pay for songs, and music can be quite expensive. When you hear like a popular song in a movie, that movie, and this is probably clear from other aspects of the movie, has a big budget.
Yeah, it's also sort of not something we were really thinking about at the time, but YouTube has become really proactive on, it's like, if we'd had a song, even if we had licensed it, YouTube might have pulled it on a like, well, this is copyrighted by somebody else, and so gets
what
yanked.
They mostly do now is, if that licensor has allowed it, that person just gets the ad revenue on your video. So if you do a cover song, which I do sometimes, so I know this, but it's just basically like, okay, but we're going to give the money to the person who owns the song. So it just would have been a Lizzie Bennett episode that we did not get the ad money on. It is also interesting that we, like, obviously we were sticking to the schedule, but, Christmas Eve is an interesting day to put something out. Obviously, then, we made it technically holiday themed, and we tried to downplay the bummer aspects of it, but, we are just a few days after a really big fight, a really nasty fight between Lizzie and Lydia.
And we're entering a really heavy period of the storyline as we move forward.
It's something that in looking at this whole stretch and recording with other people, I recognize that I look at all of this knowing how it ended. And I had some idea of where we were going to go, but I really did not, I mean, it hadn't been written yet, but like, I really did not know, I didn't know how dark things were going to get between Lydia and Wickham. I knew there was going to be a sex tape, but I didn't know the extent of what that reconciliation would look like between Lizzie and Lydia. Like, I really couldn't have known. And so I think in some ways at the time, I understood the importance of this to a certain degree, absolutely. And it's already been discussed on the show, that basically determined in the writer's room that these sisters can't be speaking to each other, or this whole next section doesn't work because they live their lives publicly on the internet. But because I obviously couldn't know what had not been written, I didn't really fully appreciate like how this was all gonna play out.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure we always, like, we obviously, like you, like, we knew where it was going. We knew very early on, like, figuring out what is the modern analog to Lydia and Wickham running off to Gretna Green, or, even worse, not going all the way to Gretna Green. It's like, they run off to get married. That's terrible. But what if they run off and don't get married? That would be even worse.
In the Pride and Prejudice
era. In the Pride and Prejudice universe, yes.
Which is also why we made them go to Vegas as a fake out of like, you think they're going to get married because that's where we do quickie weddings here, but no.
No, it's even worse than that. And and it's like you sort of go and you're so into like, we know the story beats and you're doing the adaptation and making it all work. And then if Lizzie Bennett had, if the series had a motto, at least for me, it was always one bite at a time. How do you eat an elephant? Because, like, if we'd started out being like, okay, we're going to make, more than 9 hours of content, 100 plus episodes, it's like, well, that's an insurmountable mountain of
Exactly.
stuff to do. And so it was just like, but it's just, one step at a time is how we were getting down the road.
And that's how most
And
serialized things are written, even if they have kind of an overall big picture, which we did, right? We very clearly had the template of Pride and Prejudice, but like, how does each moment go?
Yeah. But then you get there and it's like all of those steps, and it's like, it's what you and Mary Kate and all of the rest of the cast were bringing to the performances, from what's happened, for who these people are, like, that emotional kind of sincerity and depth. And these sisters you've had, they kind of have like a bickery sisterly kind of relationship, and really pushing that really far and then bringing them back together again, like that. It can't help but become heady stuff because we've all been living with these characters, whether it's the audience, the writers, the cast. We've been living with them for months, and they take on of their own.
I could just appreciate more with like the big picture, how well all these pieces fit together and how well it is crafted. And we still had this kind of like bummer thing running through our Christmas episode. We're also about to take the first break that the show, first and only break the show ever took. We have one more episode, and then we actually took a week off.
I'm trying to remember, because that was also the shoot that I directed some of the episodes. That was the one.
Is it? Was that the holiday one?
It was that shoot date. I don't remember if I directed that specific episode, but that was the one that Bernie and I split instead of
you directed this episode. I'm so sorry that I didn't get. I do remember I'm so glad you're here, because you directed 4 episodes of this day, as I recall. Is that right? Yep. You directed half of them. Oh, good. We can talk about that.
Yeah, I remembered it was that time, but clearly which ones were which had not really stuck in my mind.
It was a job that in many ways you were already doing. And so having you have more freedom to actually like give us notes and tell us what to do was great. I just remember being like, yeah, this is great. I don't remember who took over doing scripty while you were.
I think Bernie and I just swapped. So he did scripty, and because if you were directing, you were also monitoring sound.
Right.
Which
very normal.
Very normal. Yes, the writer on set is also your scripty. The director is also got cans on to monitor sound. That was like the part I was most worried about, because like I had relationships with all the cast at that point. Like I wasn't so much worried that there would be like, oh, Margaret, I don't respect her as a director, like, and everything.
No, we were very used to you giving us notes.
Yeah, but I do remember it's like, oh God, what if like the sound is crap and I don't notice it and it ruins an episode?
Ours it was 10 years ago, a show where a lot of the things that a film director needs to do were not happening. The camera doesn't move, so no one had to decide how we were going to shoot things, what the angles were going to be, what coverage we needed. That wasn't a part of our show. We knew the setup, and so it was more kind of working with us about our choices. And not every film director does that at all, but it was great to have somebody who, I mean, you always gave us great notes. Anyway, I have gone to your IMDb. You directed New Jane. This just says Dad's Train Extravaganza, which is not the title of the episode, but apparently how it got put on IMDb.
We did have over 100.
It's true, and I think an intern put them on IMDb. This Merry Christmas episode, wait, that would mean I'm missing one. And Leftovers, which was the first episode back. So yeah, so I think that was probably the start of the day. I think you did the first 4 of the day, and I'm so glad that I had you on for your last episode as a director that I very much forgot about.
I know. I'm glad that I managed to remember before we were through. Yes,
this is what we were talking about with those shared memories.
Indeed,
put the puzzle pieces together.
It was working with actors, which I have, a small amount of experience and training to do, and remembering to say action and cut, which I did not 100% of the time always remember to do. And then Bertie would be like, are we still rolling? And I'm like, no, cut. And then we would cut.
You are good at working with actors. Let's take a look at these comments and see what they thought. Red is definitely Jane's color. Yes. Jane's beautiful, we know. When Jane came in with the cookies, I felt a small wave of sadness just because I realized once again for the umpteenth time how hard Jane tries to keep everything together as her family slides apart. Oh, that's a lovely observation. I thought this was going to end up being a snickerdoodle comment, but...
Yeah, not the saddest cookies of this show.
Okay, these are like mostly about how beautiful Jane is, and you know what? Fair.
Yeah.
Except that they really wanted to see Darcy. You bet your ass we did. Don't worry, he's coming back. Jane looks particularly amazing. We know. Oh, and there's some comments about the traditions, which is cute. Oh my goodness, wait, look at this. Mrs. Kisco says, after this video was published in 2012, I went into labor and gave birth to a beautiful baby boy on Christmas morning 2012. So ever since then, Christmas has been totally different. We celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve and in the morning, but by lunchtime, it switches to a birthday celebration. Wow, it's a little Lizzie Bennet Diaries baby.
Oh, that's so great. That is so sweet. And I love having friends with birthdays like on or very close to Christmas. That seems like a really nice way to do it. Like you do the Christmas Eve, Christmas morning, and then just we're switching gears.
With Lydia's birthday being in December, we've had many conversations about how a lot of December birthdays get kind of skipped. It's a weird time to have a birthday. So we love what you do, and happy 10th birthday to a little boy whose name I assume is Darcy Kisco.
Right.
Dean Applegate makes a very good point here. Were video responses still a thing when this came out? That's crazy. Yeah, that's how old this is. But also I feel like that it was kind of already like a little not so popular at the time. It was maybe one of the last legs of it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, now we would have people would be doing TikTok responses.
Exactly. It'd be like, do a TikTok duet with this.
Yeah.
For now, everyone, merry whatever you do on December 24th, be that Christmas related or not. Also, it is already Christmas Day in much of the world by the time that this would have aired, because we're pretty late in the time zone in California. So
yeah,
Australia, East Asia, it's the 25th there. So
and we're in the middle of Hanukkah, so they synced up this year. So happy Hanukkah!
I did notice that. Yes,
yeah.
Happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate, and if you celebrate something else, or if it's just this will be a Saturday, or if you're in the future, like those other places I was talking about, Sunday. Happy day.
Happy weekend.
Get some sleep, everybody.